Now then, a petition has been started to try to stop a vulnerable man and his family being deported from Liverpool to Pakistan. Charles Mukerjee has severe learning difficulties and epilepsy. Asylum Link and Mencap Liverpool say he doesn't have the capacity to understand what's going on. The family's been taken to the Yarlswood detention centre and are worried they'll leave the country soon, fearing they could be killed back in Pakistan. I spoke to Charles's father, Wilson, this morning, and he told me his son started suffering panic attacks when he was told he was going to be deported.
Then my son got hypertension, panic attacks, and very severe panic attack, and he was out of control. And he was so furious at that time that he kicked the chairs, and chairs were broken. Suddenly, when they see this serious condition of my son, both the immigration officers left the room and locked it, and the video recording is there. They were seeing from the glass window, and then they were talking on the phone, I don't know where, and then I've seen the paramedic staff coming after the 30 to 45 minutes, but my son's condition was not stable, and he didn't even bother or dare to come inside, and nobody came inside till 2 hours inside the room. The reason that my son was not getting calm, he was so hyper and getting the panic attacks.
That's Charles Mukerjee's father, Wilson, talking to me earlier. Now, Ewan Roberts is from Asylum Link, Merseyside, and he's on the line to us now. How long's Charles been here living in Liverpool with his family, Ewan?
Roger, well, the family have been in the UK since 2011, but they've been in Liverpool since 2014. And they're part of life here now. Both Ruth and Wilson volunteer at the centre. Ruth is one of our regular cooks, and Wilson helps out where he can, whether that's in the destitution food store or with the upper reception or on the front desk or in the clothes store. So they're very well known to us. They're both here 5 days a week. And Charles, we see when his parents bring him in, he needs one-to-one care almost, which is why he's at Mencap a lot. And he's a lovely young lad, but he's been put through the mincer here because he really doesn't have the capacity to understand what's happening to him. So when Wilson was saying how he was getting angry and he was smashing chairs up, that's so out of character for him. He's such a lovely, placid, friendly, warm guy, and he has no sense of danger. He'll walk out into the middle of the road, and he needs a lot of looking after. As well as his learning disability, he's got severe epilepsy, and the increased anxiety and the tension and the uncertainty is just making his condition worse. And really, he should never be in a detention centre.
But the argument that the Home Office will say is, they've been through all the appeal systems, they have to be deported because they have failed all the appeal systems.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at this from a couple of different points of view. Why didn't they just leave him in the house and go and get him in the house? They're not a flight risk. You cannot be a flight risk with the medical needs that Charles has. So why brutalise them in this way? Unless
you need to explain that. They've just gone for a regular appointment.
They've gone to sign in. Asylum seekers are required to sign in either yearly, monthly, every week, some every day, and some who are considered to be too much of a flight risk will be detained. But the Mukerjees aren't a flight risk. It's ridiculous.
He'd gone to sign in, or the family had?
Yeah, the family had, and Charles has to come with them. They've been told that you have to do this. So perhaps, in hindsight, something like detention was on the cards. But it's the manner in which it's done. Wilson described being locked in a room while his son was getting increasingly agitated. Now, if the Home Office had done their homework and had read the neurologist's report, they would have known that shouldn't have been done. And the way they have carried this detention and out is it's not right. It's unsafe, in my opinion. And because these guys are asylum seekers, it's almost as if their rights don't exist anymore, and you can treat them the way you feel. So were the immigration officers in the room with them, were they medically trained? Did they understand the ramifications of what they were doing? I doubt it. But it's because you're not from here, then our rules don't apply to you. And I would say what would it be like if it was us, if we were in Spain or in another country, and we were held and it was our son that was fitting or at risk of a seizure, would we want people to behave in this way? So it's about trying to see it from both sides of the tracks.
Now, the appeal system is fully exhausted, but there's still MENCAP seem to be making a further appeal.
Yes, we're hoping we'll get legal representation for it, and so there is an appeal that can be made on Charles's medical needs. It's really unclear what would happen to them if they went back to Pakistan. What would happen to Charles if the facilities there to treat his condition? And there's other evidence, I think, that will be presented that hasn't been considered before. So both in the immigration case and in the case of Charles's medical needs, there's things that need closer looking at here. This is not one where you can just stick somebody on a plane and forget about them. There's more to it.
And if they were to be sent back, do you believe there's a danger to the family?
I think so. Because we've put out stuff on Facebook to get support for the family, to publicise the petition, members of his family who were chasing him and pursuing him in the first place have started to respond to that. And so what that shows is they're still being monitored, they're still being watched, and so the danger that they fled from is still there. Whether the courts or the immigration system recognise that danger, that's the thing you have to argue in court. But I know the people that were looking for them in the first place and that followed them to this country to try and get hold of them are still looking for them.
And what will happen if they find them, do you think?
Well, there'll be violence of some kind. I'm sort of rapidly going back through all the case notes and the determination here, but it's a family dispute that has somehow brought the authorities into play as well. Pakistan is often described as a corrupt country where the rule of law doesn't exist for everybody, and so there's a lot of collusion of the state in what would be family or civil matters, and so that seems to have happened in this case. And I don't think, it's my opinion, that the family wouldn't have adequate protection if they returned to Pakistan. The court said, there's no bar to you relocating somewhere else in the country, and we don't think the family could find you. But that's a bit like saying, you're in trouble in Liverpool, so why don't you go and live in Glasgow? If you were to say that to somebody here, you kind of go, why should I? Why can't I be protected where I am? And anyway, there's real doubts over whether Charles could get adequate medical treatment, especially if they were living out in the country somewhere away from one of the big cities. It sounds like you think there's sort of a little bit of a glimmer of hope that something might happen. I think so. It's never over till it's over. No matter what happens to you in the asylum system, you will go through the mainstream asylum system, which they have. But there's a thing called further submissions, where if you find new evidence that applies to your case, you can submit that, as long as it is relevant and it hasn't been relied on before. And Wilson's sister is coming across to see us this afternoon, bringing all his paperwork, which we can look at and review again. And also, he was telling me this morning on the phone that he thinks she has got new evidence of another, an FIR. It's a legal document that's been issued in Pakistan about him by the rest of the family. So, yes, you can't go on interminably at these things. But whilst there is doubt, I don't think it's reasonable to send somebody back into a situation that you cannot fully evaluate. The last time I interviewed somebody in Yarlswood, some 10 years ago probably, maybe less, they had also been through a whole load of appeals, everything failed. And actually, in the end, they came and got leave to appeal, they got leave to remain, and are a very useful member of society now. Yeah, and that's something that is often forgotten. Asylum seekers are seen as pretty much faceless. You hardly ever get... I can't remember the last time an asylum seeker came on the news to put a case or to argue the point. It's they're just faceless and voiceless. And actually, when I look around this office, Jan's just walked into the office. She came through the refugee system and is now our destitution manager. It makes a hell of a difference in a lot of people's lives. And if people are given a chance, they can do that, and they become... important members in our community. Isn't her son going to be a doctor or something? Sorry?
Isn't there something to be doctor?
Yeah. Jan's daughter is through in Manchester studying medicine at the moment. Ishti's doing events management. You know, it's just, and you couldn't want to meet two nicer kids. And they're British. Do you know, it was great. I was at the citizenship ceremony a few years ago, and it's just wonderful to see how people can get on if they are given the chance and the opportunity. And we're far too quick to dismiss that and to shut people out. And I'm afraid the Brexit machinations that are going on, it's showing Britain to be less of a fair and open and equal country than we used to be, and I think we will lose by that.
All right. Leave it as I may, but thank you, and let us know, of course, any change in the situation.
Thanks very much, Roger.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Bye now.
That's Ian Roberts there from Asylum Lincoln. Of course, we got in touch with the Home Office. They say they do not, quote, routinely comment on individual cases, but they added that the welfare of all those in our care is of the utmost importance, and we expect detainees to be treated with dignity and respect.